thought we'd take a minute today to talk about record keeping in your rabbitry. Now, do you absolutely have to keep records? No, not necessarily. You are going to want to keep at least a minimum record of breeding dates, gestation, days of gestation, when you expect things to be due, things like that. It may feel like you're going to remember and know this, but time passes quickly and things can sneak up on you without you really realizing that, say, a doe is getting ready to kindle and needs a nest box, things like that. So, you know, a lot of people, depending on your goals of your rabbitry and your program, will do different things. People who are showing or keeping pedigrees, they're going to keep even more records because you do need 3 generations of record keeping on pedigrees. I do not keep pedigrees, to be honest. I'm not against them, and sometimes if I'm buying a doe and it's offered, I might pay an extra $10 for a pedigree, more just for my own information. I don't show. My goal is homestead meat production. So what I'm most interested in is rate of growth and performance, things like temperament, litter size, those sorts of things, because that tells me how productive a doe is and tells me if my breeding pairs are hitting the right growth rates at the right times. So my basic record keeping system starts with a calendar. I keep a wall calendar here in my rabbitry. I code all the litters. It's a very simple code. Basically, it's the doe's first initial and the litter number that she's had. So if we look here, we have dandelions. First litter was born 2 weeks ago. So, you know, and I generally just update this as we go through the month. So I have a good idea who is what at what age. That also tells me, is it time to wean them? Are we approaching harvest age? Things like that. So again, you know, when I breed a litter, I'll put a note here that say, for example, if it was Dahlia and Chester, I'll say Dahlia exposed to Chester, and I'll note how many fall-offs I saw. I aim for 3, but you know, that way if I only got 1 or 2, or I didn't get any at all, I know that, you know, if there's no fall-offs, it may be a questionable breeding. She may or may not be bred, but again, I still treat all of them that have been exposed as if they were bred. If you're good at palpating, after a couple weeks, you could do that and make your own decision. I personally don't feel confident enough, and honestly, I have enough does in rotation that to me it's not a big deal if I wait the 30 days out, 35 days, and I don't get a litter. I'll just breed them back. But, you know, palpating can gain you a couple of weeks, but you have to be really confident in it too, because what you don't want to do is expose a doe to a buck who actually is bred and you don't know it, which could cause miscarriage and other issues. So that's getting a little off track, but that's an example of how and why I want to keep track of this. I do have 4 breeding does, so that is another reason I'm keeping track, even if it's just basic track, and it's only who was bred when and when I can expect them to give birth. If we take a look back, we can see, you know, where I've noted, say, like day 32. Okay, well, that's 32 days after she was bred. That's when she kindled. I usually count out and put, you know, this is the same doe, but a few days before, you see we have day 28, and that's when the nest box needs to go in and what cage it needs to go in, just to help me keep track of who's where and what they need to do. Another thing that I made is this rabbit weight tracker. I based this on, these are averages, but average growth rates for good commercial breeds. You know, this, I wouldn't say every one of them is going to be exactly spot on, you know, different crosses, different mixes, but you should generally get this range of growth rate. And I do find that mine are mainly New Zealand and Californian crosses. I do get between a good and an excellent growth rate. I will have a few that are falling a little lower than that. Typically, I find that those were the runts of the litter, and you know, they were quite frankly, lucky to survive, and they probably only survived because of the level of care and the good mothers that I select and grow. So, you know, I'm not disappointed when I do have something that's falling a little short, as long as most of the litter is falling into the good to excellent range. So this is what I've developed for me. I will leave links if you go over to meetrabbit.org, where we talk about the record keeping. I will leave a link where you can access this online and download it for free and print it. I keep on here, I've got on there just, you know, this is based on the same chart. It goes a little further out than that as well. I give the litter ID, like we talked about. It matches the one on the collar, on the calendar. The breed, or if they're crossbred, I'll note that. Who the buck was, who the mother was, when they were born, how many were in the litter, which the litter size can sometimes impact the size of the kits. So in other words, I used to have a doe that consistently only gave me 3 or 4 kits each litter, but those kits were pretty plump because they were getting such a lion's share of milk from their mom. Now, mostly the litter size I use to track the doe itself. When I start to see that litter size consistently falling off over several breedings, then I know that she's probably reached her limit of good reproduction, and it's time to start thinking about replacing her, if not replacing her outright. And then I have a cage ID. I do not tattoo my rabbits. A lot of people do. If you do tattoo, you could use that space to put the tattoo number in. And then when I'm taking weights, I'll note them and they will match up with the cage ID. Just a space for other notes. A lot of times I'll note things like, say, whether it's a doe or a buck, if there was any issue, if there's any significant with the feed. For instance, I noted that this one didn't like pellets. Sometimes I've noted that they like hay and they eat a lot of hay. The reason for that is to help tweak my feed program. I'm not going to do much about an animal that doesn't like pellets, but knowing that it likes hay, and we've been playing around with trying to figure out, sometimes we have rabbits that let go of their pelts really easily when we process, and others are really hard. So we've been trying to determine, is that something related to feed issues, whatever. This gives me the ability to look back and tell that. And then other things, if there were issues when I weaned them, you know, were there issues with the litter, issues with the doe, anything like that, just a space to make that general reference. Now, a lot of people also like to use online apps, mobile apps. I don't discount that, me and the rabbitry, and I'm a little bit old school. I like to see things on paper. But if you are into using that, or I wanted to put this into an Excel sheet or something, or create some graph or something, I could easily take this information and do that. It's just day to day in the rabbitry. I find, you know, a good pen or pencil and a piece of paper goes a long way and gives me an easy access to look back on. So that's in a nutshell, my record keeping. Again, please visit us at meetrabbits.org. I'll have links to this record and some more information that you can get there.